Welcome back to the Black Sportswoman, where Black history meets women's sports. And today I'm very excited to be talking to Janine Anthony. And well, first of all, welcome. Hello, how are you doing?
I am good. So happy to be here with you, girl. You are blazing the trail. I love it. So thank you for having me on your platform.
So the first time I was introduced to your work was maybe probably 2019 World Cup year, Ladies March. Yeah, I mean, it feels like a long time ago, but that was only like 2 years ago. But then I got to see you more face to face on the group call. It was like was it African women's football,
Yeah,
like call?
yeah. I've probably been on 1 million of them. So it's like when there's a problem, Janine, what do you think? I'm like, here we go again. So yes, it's on one of those, platforms. Yeah.
That was you said some really great stuff, but I'm not gonna like I told you I was gonna try to calm my fangirling down on here, but like, can you tell like this? So that was like a year ago, at least the last time I interacted with you. But like, what are you up to now? Like, what are you kind of working on?
Girl, you know, firstly, I've been doing broadcasting for almost a decade. And been there, done that, awards, features, investigations. But there was a theme across board, which was basically about, how we needed to improve sports infrastructure because of women. That's always been my underlying passion. And then for the wider theme. So I left broadcasting early this year. And I'm doing a full-time master's of business administration, getting my degree, Black excellence, so to get into more leadership positions, management positions, to revitalize the sports business industry in Africa for women, by women, with women, and obviously for the larger society. So that's what I'm doing now. So, stopped all the makeup, all the mics and all the writing for now, and just full-time studying to get my master's degree. So that's what I'm doing, as well as propping up ladies match again because it's an Olympic year. We've got some African contingent also, just propping that up for this year. So yes, that's what I'm actually doing at the moment.
Oh, that's so exciting! Oh, I'm so excited for you. I know. Oh, just let me calm down and then move on to the next question because but we're going to talk about like specifically the people, especially in the Olympics, and then just people who like sportswomen we should know from Nigeria. But is there a specific moment or sportswoman in history or just in general that you're like, that's my favorite?
I'm so happy to dive into this answer because I don't waste time to talk about it. Like like get my trumpet out. When I was working, so I just left the BBC about 3-4 months ago. Actually, said I was working with them for about 3 years, and I happened to interview the reason why I love women's football. Her name is Mercy Akide Udo. She's a coach in the US right about now. And she was part of, the pioneer, Nigerian team. So Nigeria has been to every Women's World Cup since its inception. So in terms of not just women's football pioneering globally, but in Africa, Nigeria is at the very top there. But they're absolute class. I remember as a child, I would see this woman with her hair and her big shirts because, of course, women can't wear fitted stuff then in the 90s, and with her power, her intelligence on the field. And I said, that's exactly who I want to be like. Because I always say this thing, our dreams are fueled by representation. And if I didn't see her play like that, look like me, I would never have known that I had passion for football. I would never have wanted it. So when I saw her doing that, I said, that's exactly who I want to be like. And that's exactly the sport I want to be like. But parents, they've got something else. They're like, you say what? Girl, if you don't become a doctor in this house. So so she inspired me. And then when I finally got to interview her, I was fangirl. I don't even think I made a proper sense of the interview. I was like, this is my dream woman. This is who I've always wanted to be. And so in terms of that focus on playing football professionally, which I didn't end up getting a chance to. She was the absolute driving force for me, Messi Akide Udo, who coaches in the US in a school. And then in terms of the sporting moment for me, which cuts across many things, it's the Nigerian bronze winning team at the Olympics, who, yes, at the Olympics, yes, the US had won that, but they celebrated more than the winners. And in every Olympic year, anytime the Olympics, they're trying to do this sort of like advert around the Olympics, that's the team that they always refer to, that particular team. They always refer to that team because they speak, and that was the 4x100 bronze medal women's team from Nigeria at the 1992 Olympics. That was the first time Nigeria had won its first women's medal. So they were absolute pioneers. And the way they jumped, and you can see on my Twitter, the way they jumped, the way they celebrated, took the attention from the actual winners to them. And for me, that has always inspired me because I don't have to win to be a success. I don't have to come first. If I defeat my demons, if I just about try, I've won. It doesn't matter where my place is on a table or on a podium or, in class. And for me, that sporting moment in 1992, not just winning Nigeria's first by women, but the fact that they had celebrated much more than the winners meant that, winning is everything, even if you lose, And so that's my moment. And for Messi Akide Udo, that's my absolute idol when it comes to women in sports.
Oh my goodness, that was so inspiring. I'm like, I love that. Oh, and then just to be clear, I reached out to you after, I think you sparked the whole idea for this series of talking to people from, so we had the Panama and then Brazil that went up yesterday, and then now you, even though I reached out to you first, but I know you were busy, but like, just know like that is, I'm just so inspired now. Oh my goodness. So you're talking about how you wanted to play football too after after that. Like what, I mean, I'm sure it's different from when you were younger, but like what are the opportunities like now, especially since this is motivating your career choices, but like what are the opportunities for girls and women who want to play football or sports?
There are opportunities. They are a bit hidden. Because when I was growing up, I didn't have as much opportunities. But the few that were available, I knew of them. But now with the world and, with the way the world has gone, and especially in my country, there are opportunities. For example, there is obviously the Women's Professional League when it comes to football. From the professional to the amateur leagues, you can, join a club, go on trial, join a club and play in those leagues. There are also like grassroots developmental high school games like Principals Cup. There is also, when it comes to general sports, you have basketball leagues as well. You also have like sports festival, but state-wise in Nigeria. Nigeria has about 36 states, and then national sports festivals. Now, those opportunities are there. But when you go to high schools, because I found the game as a child in primary and high school, it's not the same with girls now. They may know more about Chelsea and Arsenal and Manchester United, but they don't feel like they can't play the game. They feel like it's great to be fans, to be cheerleaders, but they don't actually see a pathway. Unlike my time when we saw that, we didn't think of being fans, we played it. So it's a different mentality now because what's happened is the culture has not dropped. It's just that motivating girls and to play the game has absolutely gone dead. And then when you look at the leagues, as a parent, do I really want my child to play in those leagues that don't cater to their health, don't pay them their salaries and owe them, they travel on the road, tens of hours on the road with insecurity and, so, when you see these things, like, do I actually want to put my daughter through that? let alone my son? Would I want to put them through that as a parent? So that's the first thing, because again, then it was, all about a bit of a stereotype, like, oh, if you're a woman at the time, or women shouldn't be doing that. And that was a major stereotype, which sort of shattered that a bit. Now parents are like, okay, I want her to play, but what's in it for her? How can this be a career that puts food on her table to take care of us as a family? Because in Africa, it's very communal. If you get a job, you're feeding the whole, everyone's your Auntie Janine now. You were taking care of a lot of people. What is the career progression in that? So you see a lot of girls who understand Chelsea and Manchester United and English League, but they don't think of the national women's team. And that's the difference now. So there are opportunities. It's not just visible, and it's not feasible for the decision makers, like your parents, your guardians. So it's really all about really amplifying this, and making them, and improving the infrastructures, because it's really easy to want to be a vlogger, or the infrastructures are there, but as a footballer, it's like, as a female footballer, it's not as alluring, and it must start there first before it begins to attract and retain talent, for the next generation.
That's what you're working on. No, I mean, I don't have a business mind, so I'm curious, like, how you view like the vision.
Yes, because again, like I said, my dreams of doing this was fueled because I could see them. I could watch women's football on TV. I can't do it now. I could watch it. It was so accessible. It didn't even have to be a tournament, as little as even the league. That's why media broadcasting is so important. Because if it's not on TV, if it's not on social, people won't know. And yes, that's part of what, because that is part of, it's the marketability. That's part of what I'm working on, because it's about, now let's go back to the very basics. Is this being seen, heard, believed in? Those three questions: is it seen, heard, or believed in? We need to start working across those lines. If not, we'll be losing talent to other fields, other sectors. Not just, we'll be losing talent from sports going into medicine, and there's nothing wrong with medicine. We could have sports medicine, but really, are people looking at doing that? No, so engineering. We need, even if you're going to engineering, we still need these women who can come back, build stadiums as an engineer and an architect, be a sports, medical professional. We need them around sports and women's sports as well. So that's part of what I'm doing, is to improve marketability and visibility for the generation, because it needs to be sustainable. Sustainability is the present for the future. So we need to ensure that, this is very visible to these young girls, and they attract them to it through tournaments, through mentoring. Assistant Oshola is a fantastic start, right? How would it be if you walked into a mall and Assistant Oshola was standing there and talking to young girls who just walked in to buy some shirts or something? That kind of excitement. We don't have that. Those are many marketing skills we could use to really, it's a bit disenfranchised. There's Assistant and the team, and then there are girls. It's not coming together. And that needs to be solved. And yes, I don't hope that it's when I'm ready that this will be solved, because then people will grow old. But those are some of the conversations we need to start having in Nigeria and Africa as a whole.
This is honestly, it's so fascinating. I think what is the most interesting to me that you just said was that it was more visible before, basically, like before the internet, like before everything was available on the internet.
It's ironical. It was more visible in the pre-internet age than the actual internet age, because then they tell you that women's football isn't interesting. Well, are you investing, my friend? How can you have return on investment on something you're not investing in? Is it Jesus and the five loaves of bread and two fishes? It's not. You've got to put in the money. And that argument just baffles me, because when it comes to women's sport, that's when you want to make excuses. Before men's football became what it is today, millions, billions were invested in there. But as soon as women decide to ask, you're like, oh, are you playing like Messi and Ronaldo? For real? On AstroTurf? That's how we're supposed to start playing like Ronaldo and Messi, So these are the conversations that we need to start having and improving on. Yeah.
So I have another. I'm curious because I see. So I think it was last year. Maybe it was. I don't know if it was Olympic qualifying or it was something. And we were. I would say we collectively on Twitter, just people that were watching, were like, the Nigerian women's team is this close to beating the U.S. I really am hoping this happens. Like they ended up losing, and we were all heartbroken because it was like, I mean, it's a game that didn't matter, but it was kind of like exciting because it feel like the game is growing globally, and like, is it really exciting to see the U.S. win again? But I was actually curious, like on other sports in the popularity, curious whether it's growing, basketball, but probably other sports I'm not even thinking about.
Yeah. When it, I mean, first of all, when it comes to long distance champions we have in Africa, girl, like we're untouchable. Let's give it up to Kenya, Ethiopia, Uganda. You can't beat that. So first of all, world champions, okay? In endurance. I mean, and when it comes to sport, what's more than endurance? You need to endure, and that's the endurance sport, and they're fantastic. So you have champions from the UK, US actually moving to Kenya to go and run there, to understand the course. It's called, there's a village called Iten. That's where it's produced champions when it comes to, long distance, race. So these people move, from the US, from the UK, move to Iten, a small community in Kenya. So when it comes to that, as in Jamaica, you have that, structure where, you have, it's such a structure where, when it comes to sprinting and sprinters, people move there. That's the way it is for Kenya, where people move their turn. So that's the opportunities are abound there. Football might be a little bit more problematic because it's the sport that has the most investment, has the most money, but the least return on it, really, and the least concern. A lot of administrators don't care about how the sport is faring. So when it comes to athletics, long distance, especially when it comes to Kenya and Eastern Africa, that's well, we have world champions in Africa from there, so that's great. We also have for basketball, which is a thriving sport, and back to back, Nigeria's won the Afro Basket Women. In fact, we have the likes of Chine and, trying to play for the Chine Ogumike sisters from the WNBA, trying to play for the Nigerian women's basketball team that, have dominated the continent for the last 5 years. Also going to be competing with the USA at the Olympic Games and in the same group with the USA. So it's like, okay, that is the test. That is the test. So that's also, one bit. And as well as, when it comes to sprinting, for example, Blessing Okabare literally 2 days ago, no, not 2 days, a few days ago, became the joint fastest woman alongside Shelley-Ann Fraser-Price in the 100 meters, just behind Flo Jo. So that's in the sprints, the 100-meter sprints. And this was a woman who we had interviewed her, and she even broke down during the interview. She was in tears of how she struggled mentally and physically and met, cyberbullying. And for her to run the race of her life and is right up there. And that was why that lineup could have been late with, Shakara Richardson, where it's like, okay, these women are going to absolutely blaze the trail. We can't wait to see. So we have Blessing Okagbare, 100-meter African sprint queen. She's tied on the second fastest woman in the world in terms of, she was wind aided anyways with Shelley-Ann Fraser-Price just behind Flo Jo. So you have long distance for Kenya and Eastern Africa. You have sprinting for Blessing Okagbare and Jose Marie Tolu. You have basketball as well. You have the Nigerian basketball team, and then you have the likes of Ade Kuroye, who is blazing the tracks in wrestling. I keep saying blazing the tracks. She's throwing the fist, girl. She's she's throwing it when it comes to wrestling. She's also there as well. And she's just doing absolutely amazing in that regard. And let's not forget at the Olympic Games as well, the Zambia women's national team that will be representing Africa in the football tournament. So the continent is brimming, yes. But the fear is it's got to have people who believe in it, because here's the thing about Africa. Sports is very much government regulated in Africa. And so with the pandemic really hitting African countries, a lot of economies that spend money on sport are beginning to keep that money to do other things. So sport hasn't been completely privatized. So there might be a bit of a shake-up, which is what we've been clamoring before a pandemic to say sports needs to be independent, needs to start having its own revenue streams. So that there might be some sort of, might be some 2 steps forward and 10 backwards. We don't hope so, but we're hoping that the investors in the game can really find a way to make sports sustainable for the wider Africa.
I am curious because life as Black women does, of course, impact like our not only sporting opportunities but like media opportunities. But I'm curious specifically in the Nigerian context how that life as a Black woman in society impacts like the sports opportunities.
Um, for Nigeria and Africa as a whole, because it's almost homogeneous in terms of Black people. So there isn't, I would never understand the struggles of Black women in America or even in Britain, because they're in countries that they have to fight every second of every day to prove that they're worth it, really. They don't even have to prove, but hey ho, yeah? So I would never understand that struggle. I would never even act like I get it. Sometimes, the only time I get it, or the only time I wear those shoes as well, is when we're outside our continent, when we are all Black. No one knows who's African, no one knows who's Black American. So we're all going through the same treatment, you know, when it comes to, you know, racist treatment, you know. So as so in my neck of the woods is as a woman, you know, how do we navigate that? And when I started, the way I navigated that was through tokenism. Tokenists, I had to do that, you know. I had to, you know, when they say they want to create a sports team and they had to have that one hand-picked woman there that makes the team look cute, you know, those were the opportunities I was given and I took them. But the whole idea of taking them was never again will any woman come through the ranks and be part of a quota system. She will be in that industry based on merit, based on her work, based on her ethics, and based on how fantastic she is at her deliverables. But at the time when I stepped into the industry, we didn't have that choice. We were very good, cute people to put on and be eye candy, right? Now it's very different. It's completely different because even in the feminist movement, women had to make sacrifices for the future of other women to be better. So that's kind of like the sacrifices we had to make at that time. So when we got, because if I had put in my application, you probably not even put me up for an interview. But the minute you wanted to have some so-called tokenist diversity platform, I took it. I took those opportunities because how else will I get on the table of men? I have to do it. But the whole idea is that when you get in as a woman, you begin to shatter those glass ceilings. You begin to break every stereotype to say, as long as I'm here and through what you've seen, if it's me, we're not aliens. We're not like germs. If you see me as a woman that can do this, best believe there are 10 million other women that can do the same thing even more. Right? So when it started at that time in my life, a lot of women from my time, I'm not too old really, but we're talking of something of 10 years ago. I mean, 10 years ago, you know, this was what was rife. How much more 20 or 30 years ago? I can't begin to imagine it. So now they put out applications and women. That's how I worked for the BBC. That's how I ended up working for the BBC. In fact, the BBC team I worked with were an all-women team. That caused a lot of meltdown. And a lot of people were butthurt. Like, why all women? Because heaven forbid you have an all-women sports team, like women's, you know, media team. Heaven forbid, especially if it's not women's World Cup or women's basketball. How on earth should you have an all-women's team? Like, it was one of the great wonders of the world, right? A lot of people. But then the BBC came in, you know, and wanted to create this new platform. Everyone who went there from Africa, all of us who got the job were all women, my sisters. That's what can happen now. unlike before. So it's getting better, because we're doing the work, we're putting in the work, we're ready to fight, we're ready to love, we're ready to work with allies, we're ready to demand, we're loving, we're not fighting, you know. We only fight for our rights, but we love in the midst of all of it all, right? So it's much, much better. Of course, we need more improvements, you know, but it's much, much better because women are now, you know, seen in large parts for what they can bring to the table rather than what people see, you know, their face or how they sound, you know. So that's that here.
Okay, this is good. Especially, I think media, like we were talking about, how the media representation, but also like just of you existing, being like reporting, producing, or whatever, but also like showcasing stuff for your specific perspective. That's very exciting that that is improving because yeah, we both know like how important media is. Like it shapes like our perception of everything, which kind of scares me because it's horrifying like how we perceive things based on usually some like white man's idea of like an entire like country or continent or whatever, but at the
Yeah.
same time I'm glad it's like, you know, step by step.
Another thing I just want to add is how these things improve as well for women when they take opportunities and they actually create pathways. For instance, when I started doing women's football in Africa completely, we had a few bits and bobs of people doing that here and there. But in terms of how, you know, large scale, social media heavy, hashtags, trending topics, that was going to be alien in African women's football. And I saw that opportunity. It was a fallow ground. Nobody was doing that. And I did that. I have another young lady of mine who we met at a tournament, and she said, I heard so much about you. How can I do something? And I said, look, football is so saturated. Create value. Create something that should be an absolute bosser. Like you will be undenied whether you're a man or a woman. Like, and then she started looking at cricket. I can't tell the number of awards that girl has won now for just seeing that opportunity and creating value. So a way that this, and then in my team that started working for the BBC, we had one who was fantastic as a director. We had one that was brilliant in podcast and social media. Then you had been who done a lot of women's sports. So we all had strong points, you know, and that was good because then when you had a lot of other maybe male, reporters, they just had one single strength. And for women, they were very strategic about, okay, yes, we can have this basic strength, but let's go this. And that's exactly what you're doing in your platform. You're creating value. You're seeing there's a gaping hole that can be filled. And that's a tactic. That's a strategy that I advise a lot of women. You know, I've met a lot of them who watch football, and I'm like, you like taking pictures. You want to go into sports photography? Do you want to do sports medicine? How about coaching? How about refereeing? You know, how about architecture? There's a lot of career. We don't all have to be in front of a camera. We probably wouldn't be, you know, but we can create values in different silos that when you put them together, you see women just about everywhere in the industry. Yeah. So that's one thing I always try to advise women to, yes, do what everybody's doing because you're passionate about it, but create value, have your own unique USP, your own unique selling point that no one can touch, you know, and you'd be undeniable as an expert in your field.
That's that business mind. You've been before NBA, like you know, you've been headed. Oh, this is exciting. Okay, before I really this question I'm very excited about because I really am excited for opportunity for people to learn, like know more. I know we mentioned them before, but like people, it's exciting for people to have someone to follow, especially. I know the football team's not going to the Olympics, but just in general, who are some people that we should be following or we may not know about and we definitely should?
Like I said, I'd kind of like already mentioned them a bit. I'd mentioned Blessing Okagbami that is a must follow because that girl is motivated. She's turned her lemons to lemonade, and she's out. She wants to use these Olympics to dispel the myth because she's always been promising. In fact, she's actually a Commonwealth record holder. So she's always been looked at as the next big thing. She won her first Olympic medal at probably in her teens in long jump. So she made that transition from long jump into sprinting. And they've always called her the African sprint queen. And she just, when it came to that field, Shirley Ann Fraser Price and co, she just didn't hit that mark. So she's coming into the Olympic Games with, with a lot more in store. And that's somebody that I think, the world, should be looking at as well. We have the likes of Odunaya Dekore, which I mentioned as a wrestler. She is she is mowing her field. And I know that's not a sport that, when it comes to combat sports, that's not a line that a lot of people like to look at because it's bloody and stuff, but it's not bloody. Wrestling, this particular, is not bloody. And she's a staunch Christian. She's going into a fight with praise and worship, speaking in tongues, filled with the Spirit. So that's unique. As a sport, that's unique. And while she's fighting, she's calling in the Holy Spirit. So that's something that I find that's so interesting to watch. And that's someone I think a lot of people will be looking at as well. Like I did mention the basketball team, the Ogumike sisters, also in the team in the USA, probably looking for, you didn't call me up, Team USA. So if we get in, it's blood on the dance floor, let's dance, Mamba style, rest in peace, So, those are the, Erica, those are the people I think we could be looking at, the likes of Neka, Chini, and Erica, especially because I feel like, they feel like they have something to prove. So that would be very mouth-watering, really. Additionally, we have Toby Amuson, who's a hurdler, S.A. Brummer, he's a long jumper as well. And then we also have, so the women's marathon will be arguably the fastest field. We've got the fastest woman in the world, Bridget Koske. She achieved this at the Chicago Marathon, actually, in 2019. We also have the half marathon record holder who got that record like 2 business days ago, or 3 months ago. Ruth Chepengetich is going to be there as well. So, and then I can't quite remember the third person, but that's a really fast field in terms of marathon. So that's definitely a field to be looking at. And I also mentioned the women's football as well. So these are the pockets that we can be looking at in terms of the general African point of view. When it comes to tennis, the likes of Onjaber, she's not Black. She's African because she's from the continent. And in terms of tennis, we talk about how she carries, she's from Tunisia. She carries the hopes of, Africa to that extent as well. Onjaber doing very well in tennis. So these are people that we can be looking out for, teams as well that we can be looking out for. I did mention the basketball team as well that we can be, but look out for Team Kenya, Team Ethiopia, 5,000, 800, just that whole field. Those are people that we could be looking out for. S.A. Brume in long jump, that's not the field part of it. Wrestling, that's completely out of track and field, that's combat sports. And if you want to look at the wider ones, you look at the UK where we have the Somali who's a boxer, So you have Ramla Ali. So you have, not Ramla Ali, sorry. Can't quite remember, it's an R name, just so many in my head, but Ramla Ali is definitely, can't quite remember her name. She's British, and we've done a story about her a while back, can't quite remember. Yeah, no, actually, yes, her name is Ramla Ali. Actually, her name is Ramla Ali. She, her story was so inspiring. Like, she boxed, and when it was found out that she'd done that, she wasn't allowed to go back to her country. So she had to stay back, and now she's having to fight for the country that accepted her, which is Great Britain. Yeah, so her name is Ramla Ali. It was a very inspiring story, and she's going to be an Olympian for the first time. So in terms of, the white Black women that you could be looking out for, that's the Ramla Ali story. Is one that you can be looking out for, at the Olympics. For a second, I just Layla Ali kept putting, I was like, no, it's not Layla, Ramla Ali is her name, yeah. So definitely one to be looking out for. And the great thing, Bria, is the Olympics, stars will be born. We will see them come through shooting so high and so fast. And that's when we do that, we have this call again and we talk about those stars.
Yes. You know what? First of all, you wrapped that up. Like, I just gotta remember that this is what you do. You wrapped that up so well. But also, I I'm so excited because not only just the young boxers, because I was just talking to Julia Bellas about there's a young Brazilian boxer, and Jusielin, I can't remember her last name, but she's not expected to win gold, but like just so many young black women boxers, like I'm like seeing this theme now here too. I'm like, this is it's very exciting just to see them on a platform.
One, I missed someone. I missed and this was a very personal story to me because when I did her story went viral. So she's from the Gambia. Her name is Gina Bass. Beautiful, fantastic young woman who borne the flag of her country, the Gambia. She'd broken records, smashed them. She was their Olympic torchbearer and flag bearer rather. Um, but she said she's regarded as the poorest Olympian. She had no house to live. She had no car to drive. And then when you look at her male counterparts, we weren't doing too badly. But this is a woman who'd taken all the records for Gambia. And she said, I still live with my brother. I can't afford to keep training. I can't afford to get good shoes. I can't afford to have a house. I don't even have a car to commute. And I live with my brother. Sometimes it's not worth it, but I keep trying. And that story went viral on the BBC, and the government decided to have a talk with her, and people started trying to raise funds for her, because the story was called, They Call Me the Poorest Olympian. And that headline, it just went viral. She's someone that I'm really looking forward to seeing. I'm really looking forward to seeing that young girl I interviewed 2 years ago, who says, I can't afford stuff. I mean, just being at the Olympic Games is something she can now afford to be in. And I'm really looking forward to having a really good outing. So Gina Bass is another player, athlete from the Gambia, also in the 100, 200 meter sprint. She's also a good African champion. She's always in the mix in Africa. That's someone, fantastic backstory, even more beautiful personality. And I'm looking forward to seeing her do good. Again, like I said, she doesn't have to come first to win. Maya, she's a winner already. So I'm looking forward to seeing her do well.
Before I kind of wrap up and definitely like plug where we can find you, is there anything that I didn't ask you about or anything that you wanted to talk about that I didn't bring up?
I don't think so. I think this has already been good. Obviously, like I said, I'm remodeling Ladies Match. It took a hiatus. When I joined the BBC, I couldn't do two things at the same time. And then when I fell back, a lot of media sprung up and continued that, and that was amazing to see. So it's like, we're Mama Bear, we don't have to compete. We did that, and so right now with the Olympic Games and obviously my schedule, just trying to rehash that, see what we can produce for the Olympic Games and the wider African Women's Champions League as well. That's coming this year. Very excited about that. As a debut Champions League meet. So yes, in terms, I don't have anything. I mean, I'm just a student now, so there's no razzmatazz around my life. Just a good old student trying to get the A's and B's. So yeah, I would say thank you very much for having me. And guys, if you haven't told everyone around you to join the Black Sportswomen train, you've got to tell them now. This is where you need to be. You need to be on the Black Sportswomen train, because we are reclaiming all of our time, and we're taking it to the next level. And this is the platform that has all Black women. Don't mean just African American, British, African, Caribbean, all in one platform. And you see that we have more things that bind us than separates us, and that's the motherland. And this is the platform to get all of your information. So if you haven't signed up, if you haven't registered, if you haven't spread the news, you better be doing it now, because I'm going to be getting the reports at the end, the report card, for all of you. And yes, can't wait to create magic with you guys. So thank you.
Thank you. You know what? We're going to end it there because there's no way I could wrap it up better. But thank you for joining me. I'm so excited. Yes, we're all like doing this together and uplifting each other. So I'm very excited.